Yo, this is Fling, and we are looking at best ball playoffs. I wanted to make a quick video for someone who, maybe has done best ball before, but has never done the playoff format because it's really different. And if you've never played playoff best ball at all, this is going to be a great, quick how to video for you as well. All right. So, you know, just kind of an overview of best ball playoffs. Essentially, what you are playing for is this. It's very similar to DFS. You're playing like a DFS showdown. You're playing for it to go one way. So you're drafting for two teams to make the Super Bowl, essentially. So how now from there, the how you will attack the slate can be very different. And that could be on dependent on the site that you're playing on. So if you're playing on Underdog Fantasy, they actually do rounds, and you have to advance out of the first round into the second round and into the third round and into the Super Bowl. So it's like you couldn't just stack. Let's say you think Kansas City and Detroit are both going to make the Super Bowl. You couldn't just load up on Kansas City and Detroit players for the Super Bowl because you won't make it out of the first round. So you'll be dead. Now on drafters, for example, which we're going to go over drafters and underdog, the differences and kind of show you the rules for both. But on drafters, you can load up on players because it's a cumulative scoring. So you still want players in the wild card round, but you can heavily stack more so for bye week players like the Lions, like the Chiefs, because you're not advancing out of the first round. It's actually total points scored over the entire playoff scenario. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. So I'm going to show you here. This is the mitten. So if you want to give it a try, you're not spending a lot of money. It's $5 entry fee, and you have a chance to win the top prize, which is 50,000. Now you're going against 112 other thousand players. So you have to think about, how can I differentiate my lineup in these drafts? So it's 150 max. Of course, you can do as many of these as you want. And obviously 50K to first. Fun payout structure. But there's the wild card round. There's the divisional round. There's the conference championships. And then there is the championship. Now, one of the biggest differences is Underdog Fantasy is half PPR. So you'll want to keep that in mind. It's more touchdown dependent. So you typically want to lean running backs as they have better touchdown equity on a site like Underdog versus drafters. It's full PPR format. So there's also one quarterback, one running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end spot. So you're not forced to draft a tight end. That's one of the big differences. On drafters, you are. So that definitely changes up, maybe how you attack the draft in your lineup construction. There's a flex spot and there's 5 bench spend spots. So 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're drafting 10 total spots. You're going against 5 others. It's a pot of 6. And let's take a look at just kind of all the rules to show you, how this is different. So 10 total players, as I said, and you are going against 6-person groups. So in the first round, so there's 4 rounds. First round is a 6-person group. So you're going against 5 other people. Second round is a 10-person group. So you have to advance in the first round against 5 others. And then the second round, you're advancing against 10 others. Third round, 5 others. And then the final round is a single 375 elimination group. So the good thing is you're not having to beat 112,000 every single time. You're just having to beat your pod for that first round. And then your pod for the second round, which is 10 people. For the third round, your pod, which is 5 people. And then the last round is when you're going against 375 people. So obviously, you're going to want to pick that Super Bowl correct. Now, when you draft, obviously, one thing to think about is, do I want to go for the obvious, most likely chance of the playoffs or the Super Bowl scenario of the Chiefs and Lions? Or maybe do I want, someone playing in that first round? Maybe I think the Bills are going to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to load up on Bills, and, then I got the Lions on the other side. Or, maybe I think Philly's going to come out of the NFC. So maybe it's going to be a Philly and Ravens stack. So you're going to be drafting for that contest, to go for the playoffs to go a certain way. Typically, you want about 6 to 8 players in the Super Bowl to have any chance. But specifically on drafters, one of the biggest things to remember is that you have to get out of that first round. You have to beat those 5 other people in your pod. So you're going to want to at least have, a full starting lineup for the first week of the Super Bowl. So think about that. You're going to need one quarterback starting. So you can't do, if you drafted just one quarterback, right? Typically you want to draft 2 quarterbacks, but if you drafted just one quarterback, you can't just have Patrick Mahomes who's on a bye week, because you will not get out of your first round. So you're typically going to want to draft 2 quarterbacks, 3 to 4 wide receivers, or 3 to 4 running backs, and 3 to 4 running backs, and about 4 to 6 wide receivers. And you have to have a full starting lineup playing in that first round if you're trying to get out of the first round for Underdog Fantasy. Now, drafters, let's go over to drafters. Biggest difference with drafters, they do full playoff scheduling. So you are not going against a single pod. You're drafting with a pod. You're drafting against 5 other people, but you are going against the full 18,000. This is the mini, there's $3 entry fee, and you're going against 18,000 others. Now, like I said, because you're not trying to get out of the first round, you don't necessarily need to worry about how many players are going to be playing in the first round in my drafts. Now, if you nail it, it's better. Like if the Ravens get to the Super Bowl, you're going to want a lot of Ravens in the first round. But if it's a Chiefs Lions Super Bowl, for example, you're going to be better to have loaded up on Chiefs and Lions, but also keep in mind that they're going to be playing against teams in the conference championships that you also want in your lineup. So if it's the Bills playing against the Chiefs, like you're going to want, you had Mahomes, you had Kelsey, you had Worthy, right? But you're going to want James Cook in that lineup, or, you're going to want Keon Coleman. Or if it's Philly, it gets to the NFC Championship against the Lions, and you have, Lions, maybe you have Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to want Saquon Barkley. You're going to want A.J. Brown. So you're going to want players in your draft that get the furthest in the playoffs. And you typically want about 6 to 8 players in the Super Bowl, regardless of what site you're on. Just saying, as far as drafters, it's not as important to nail the first round players because you're not trying to advance. So keep in mind, you want to be right when you're drafting. So drafting for certain scenarios. And if you're doing a lot of these drafts, attack it a few different ways, right? Here's this draft fell to me this way. I'm playing for a Ravens Vikings Super Bowl. I started this draft with Philly. I'm playing for a Philly, Bills Super Bowl, right? So just keep that in mind as how you want to draft. This is $3 entry fee. You could do 150 of these as well. You're going against 18,000 versus 118,000. So drafters is a much easier contest to win, especially with the accumulation. You don't have to nail the puzzles perfectly. You just have to get enough players in the Super Bowl, pick the 2 Super Bowl teams that you want to stack. And if that goes right, you have a very good chance of winning this contest. I finished in like 200th place last year, and I had a Lions and Chiefs Super Bowl. And the Lions, of course, were 1/2 away from getting there. And I might have taken down the tournament because, that was the way that I played for it. But still ended up doing pretty well because the Lions made it to the conference championship and the Chiefs made it to the Super Bowl. And I had like 3-4 Chiefs in that drafters contest. So it's a pretty fun contest. Have some fun with it. Of course, I just wanted to kind of do a brief overview for this video. And then, of course, I'm going to be having more content this week dropping on the channel specifically for the playoffs best ball. We're going to do some live drafts and look at a couple of different strategies. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.